This week I learned having 2 kids that now own a VR means I will never ever have any reading peace in the house ever again. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another weekly update and a happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. And you know what? All of us have a dad. Make sure you give your dad a call today. So, lots of fun things going on around the house. Father's Day here, and it's very loud. It's very, very loud. My father-in-law has gotten each one of the kids a Oculus VR headset for their birthdays, and it was loud when there was one of them, and now there are 2 of them, and you can hear them in different rooms because you have a microphone and you're like yelling at the other people. It's just, you can imagine so fun Father's Day moments for sure, guys. But it has been a fun week, and we're going to kind of talk about that as I'm kind of getting in the swing of things again here after a vacation. To begin, like usual, guys, talk about what am I reading. I did finish The Demon Awakens by R.A. Salvatore, book 1 in his Demon Wars saga. This is kind of a mixed bag for me. I think there's a lot of things to like here. I think there are lots of throwbacks to some other series that I do enjoy. Now, you got to understand, guys, this came before some of these series I'm going to mention. So obviously, anytime you have a magic system of any sort that's above, hey, I'm a wizard and I can do magic, this deals with, basically magic stones, I guess, that kind of rain from the sky and give the user special abilities, each one having a different power. It's going to get a lot of people to mention Mistborn. I mean, anytime you have any kind of expanded magic system, everyone now goes to Brandon Sanderson because he's so good at it. So I would say that, yes, how you have the each user using a different stone will give them a different ability. I see you can see that as like Mistborn in many ways. I get a lot of Pillars of the Earth actually out of this because there is a character that's Avalon that deals with, kind of a corrupt monastery, and that kind of makes me think of a lot of things that Prior Philip kind of deals with in Pillars of the Earth, but it isn't quite like that that R-rated. This, I would say, is it's a kind of in between PG-13 R. Like if you've read any other Salvatore, his stuff is very family friendly and all ages can kind of get into it. This deals with a lot of things that I would say is, I put this on the adult fantasy range. Now, there's not a lot of bad language or anything like that. There's a lot of content and violence and sexual abuse, I think. I always say that will raise those flags. Be like, know your reader whenever they kind of pick that up. But I think what I did like about this, I like the world he's created. I like the magic. I kind of like the coming of age stories because you get 3 of them here. I think that Jill's story is really good. She really is one of those kind of characters. Kind of made me think of Vivenna from Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, that she really just kind of goes through the shit and you just kind of keep rooting for her until she does finally find her way and just kind of keeps overcoming those odds. So really just a character just kind of gets just beat up constantly. You just find yourself rooting for them. I loved Avalon. I thought Avalon was a spectacular character. That's a character that I really just could not get enough of. I turned the page and saw it was one of his chapters, I was very excited because the stuff in the monastery, really good. The stuff outside the monastery, even better. I think the second half of this book, his character is just terrific. I love the journey that he takes. Now, when you go to ℙ𝕦𝕤𝕤, the main character, I'm kind of mixed on him. He kind of makes me, I'm sorry to keep making the Brandon Sanderson comparison here. It kind of makes me think of Wax from the era 2 of Mistborn, and that he's just kind of boring. He's kind of dull. He's a goody two-shoes. He's always really, really good at just about everything. He does struggle a little bit, but I got a lot of Tad Williams vibes out of this as well. Because I think it's in book 2, Stone of Farewell, in the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, you have your character Simon, where he's kind of he's this place where he's not a prisoner, but he cannot leave. You get a lot of that with ℙ𝕦𝕤𝕤 in this. So again, lots of things I feel familiar with because you are dealing with traditional fantasy, but I do feel like it is very fresh in its own right. I never feel like, hey, this is just like that. Now, some things that I will say I didn't like very much, it's kind of predictable, guys. I mean, it is 90s fantasy. It is traditional fantasy. Might be a little bit more adult than you would expect for that, but it is very, very predictable. It isn't going to be anything where you're like, I've never seen that kind of trope before. The farm boy leaves home, the Dark Lord, all that stuff is here, but it does feel very fresh in its own right. So this isn't Salvatore being like, hey, I'm going to reinvent the wheel, but it does feel like something that will be familiar to anybody who's kind of read it. Also, the way I put it was, I feel like I like the series enough to continue, but I'm not anxious to continue. Does that make sense? Because I feel like book 1 here, it could be treated as a standalone if you want it to. For me, it was like I said, there was these group of characters that I liked most of them, and let's just say one of them probably won't be around the rest of the series, and that's kind of a bummer. Now, these things happen, obviously, in fantasy, and that's fine. You can keep going on. I just feel like you kind of took the heart out of your story by doing that, and I'm not really on board with that decision. Also, it did not need to be almost 700 pages. This story that it tells, I don't feel like it drags or anything. It can be glacial at times. I never feel like it drags where I wanted to put the book down, because I did read it in like 3 days, guys, but it definitely could have been much shorter. Now, I don't know if that's just because, he was trying to get away from Drizzt, which are always really quick stories, or what. He was trying to do something different. It just, again, it did not need to be that long. Now, that might be me, guys. I'm going through my thing right now where anything over like 500 pages is like, get back, demon, for me right now. I'm just kind of burned out on that, but I did not think it needed to be that long. So, again, I give the book a recommend. I say check it out, but it's just one of those where I'm going to say, if you like traditional fantasy, cool. If you don't really like traditional fantasy, it's not going to be anything that I think is going to sell you on that, especially with 90s fantasy. But I do like a lot of the things that he did there. Just some of the decisions that he made in the third act, it just doesn't really have me excited to pick up book 2, which is Demon Spirit. But I will eventually. But it isn't going to be like in July or anything like that. So that's kind of where I stand with it. I'm glad that I read it, but it is a very mixed reception to that book. And then, guys, I started Come With Me by Ronald Malfi. Not that far, about 60 pages into it. This is an author that has been, ever since I've made Stephen King content, I've had people asking, have you tried Ronald Malfi? I think that you would like him quite a bit. So that was right up there with like Nick Cutter with me, and I wanted to kind of take the same approach with Malfi that I did with Nick Cutter, because a lot of things I heard about Nick Cutter and Ronald Malfi are people like, I went into it expecting Stephen King and I was disappointed. And I said, well, obviously that's going to be kind of a high bar, and I don't think we should put that on anybody. Oh, cool, one of the greatest writers of all time, let's compare them to them and then be disappointed when they're not as good as them. I saw that a lot with James Islington, like, oh, he's not even as good as Brandon Sanderson. Well, no shit, this is a debut author, he's not as good as the Lord Ruler right now. I understand that. What I go into this is I say, maybe it's not like Stephen King, but Stephen King fans will like it. That's really worked well with me for Nick Cutter. I feel like he's 2 for 2. And I'll say 60 pages into this, I'm into it, and I think every other Stephen King fan will be too. What I mean by that is he sets the stage very well. He establishes these characters and their lives while also kind of telling you what happened, what got this character to this point. And I don't want to spoil anything because the first couple of chapters are heart-wrenching and haunting, and it's very good. And now I'm going to say, I know that this is supposed to be a horror book, but so far it's just very much like a mystery. And it's one of those kind of things where, after someone dies, you start to find out like maybe some secrets you didn't want to know about, but yet you can't stop looking. I know that's just human nature. It's just something that you just have to do. You have to keep looking. Just have to know one way or the other. So seeing where this character Aaron is kind of going here, trying to find out what his wife was into before her untimely demise it's been interesting, and I'm all in. I'm all in to know what the actual mystery is, and if this is going to get somewhat supernatural or Southern Gothic somehow, I'm interested to see how it does that, because I am very, very interested so far. I think its writing style's good. It's nothing that's going to floor you or anything like that, but I do think it has been a very good setup, and I am very interested to see where it goes, and I imagine I will finish that this week. Guys, that leads me to what am I going to read, obviously. I will finish Come With Me. It's not a very long book, and I'm just so glad that I've decided to inject some horror onto the TBR more than just at the end of the year in October. But I'll be finishing that up. I'll be resuming with Skypiea One Piece. I didn't read any this week because I was just getting through the Demon Awakens, and I didn't really get back to... I didn't have my iPad charged, and I just never charged it, and I just never really thought about it until now. So I'm going to get back onto One Piece Skypiea, because I am doing... The plan is right now, guys, to be doing one saga per month. So I got to get a move on that. And then I'll just be beginning Wool, which is book 1 in Silo, the very popular Apple TV series. But it was a popular sci-fi series before that. Much like horror, I'm trying to get at least one sci-fi book in my bloodstream once a month now. And with this one, is I tried reading this once before. It's like it wasn't that I wasn't not enjoying it. It was like bad timing for me. You know, you guys ever have that? You'll start reading a book and you think it's fine, and you're not like disliking it or anything. You just kind of stop because you feel like it's the wrong timing. That's what it was for me. I tried this a couple years ago, but the thing was is like I probably got about 30-40% into it, and I felt like the things that it did, the Apple TV series was pretty faithful on those things. So obviously watching the Apple TV series, maybe say I'm going to go back to that and revisit that for sure, and try to see if I can do the whole series here before the Apple TV series does resume here in, gosh, probably won't be till next year. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, it's a good series if you guys haven't watched it, but I'm excited to get back to this and see if it does really kind of hammer home all those things that I was liking the first time. It makes me want to keep going this time. So I know it sounds really weird to say that, you know, I wasn't disliking it, but I did stop reading it. I never put it as like a DNF or anything. It was something I said I'd go back to, but, you know, it's been like a year and a half, 2 years now since that happened, so I'm excited to see where it does go from here. But that's all I really have for the rest of the month, so I might actually have to dip into some of my July plans here pretty soon, which is always fun to be a little ahead of schedule, and that's why I did do the shorter TBR this month, because just wasn't sure how things were going to go with that vacation and all. How about this week on the channel? Because of vacation, content was a little slow this week. I am trying to get back into the swing of things, not just with life, but also with work. You return back to work after a week off. Don't know what you guys' work life is like. Mine is kind of busy. Like, it took about until lunchtime just to get my emails cleared out that first day back. But I did my top 10 authors of all time. This is one that was cheerleaded on by Philip Chase. I was on his channel for Dear Dr. Fantasy, and he's talking about he had made a video of his top 10 authors of all time. And I said, I don't think that I could do it. And Philip, in his bullying way, which is pure positivity, by the way, is, I believe in you. I think you can do this, man. So I did go ahead and make that video. It's one that I never thought that I would make, but it's tough. It's tough. And I think the biggest reaction I've gotten on there is they can't believe that I didn't have Joe Abercrombie on there. And I said, well, people, I'm using this as a whole. Their work as a whole. I didn't really like Shattered Sea very much, and I think that's got to count for something. And also, you're talking about the 10 best ever. I've been reading books for a long time, so there's lots of great authors who didn't make that list, so I feel like with a list like that, it's always going to be more about what you didn't put on there than what you did, and I expect that or whatever, but I would say as of right now, you're making gun to my head with pick 10 of them. That was the 10 that I did roll with, because I do think that, new ones will roll in, old ones will roll out. That is just kind of how things work. But, I did have a couple of entries on there I didn't expect. I did have some that kind of slid down further than if I'd made this list a few years back, because I have continued to read so many new authors, and it was a lot of fun to make the list. Usually something like that is very frustrating, but this one, I knew going in, okay, look, you're talking about all-time best here. It's hard, but it's a little easier to make some cuts to be like, okay, well, maybe I need a little bit more data, or, when you're looking at their work as a whole, do I like one series? I like everything they've written, those things all do kind of factor in there. But in the end, a list like that really is just the most subjective thing ever, and I think that it's going to be different for everybody, obviously. And that's why I call it my top 10 authors of all time, not the best authors of all time, so those lines get blurred quite a bit, but I'm glad that I made it, and the feedback has been mostly positive, and I'm happy for that. I just did a couple clips really this week, like I said, trying to get back into the swing of things. I did a clip of my book of the month for May, which was You Like It Darker by Stephen King, and kind of talk about why there, as well as kind of my rapid review for The Vanished Birds. Again, something that I'm doing there is just because a lot of people will look for my thoughts on a particular book, and they're not going to know to go to, hey, look up the weekly update from this exact point. They're going to just search, my name and the title. So I want to make sure I give those people an option to find just that. And I think you guys know I was not a fan of The Vanished Birds, and I think I was about as respectful as you can be without liking something as there was there. Not on my channel. I was a guest over on iWizard's channel. Jordan, great guy. I really love what him and his wife do over there. His wife does some really good reviews of The Expanse, if you haven't caught that, but they're big Buffy fans like my wife and I are. So I felt like Jordan and his wife are like me and my wife, like on another path of the beam. I really believe that. I really think that their relationship kind of just really reminds me of ours, and that makes Jordan very easy to talk to, and we did talk for like 2 hours. We were joined by Joanna from Joanna Reads, and it's always a good time to have Joanna on and talk to her, and to have the two of them bullying me to read Scott Baker's Prince of Nothing, along with Philip, who also did it last week. So I've been bullied. I've been bullied a lot the last few weeks, but I think they're finally starting to get through to me, guys. I'm considering doing Prince of Nothing over the summer now, at least book one. That's my rule now, is I will try book one of these series and see how it goes from there. But nothing in stone there. But but Jordan did in that conversation. He's been trying to get me to read Alistair Reynolds for a couple years, and I told him this time, look, give me a book that's a standalone, and give me a book that's under 500 pages, man, and I will read it. And he did give me one in that video, so check that out, and you guys will have a spoiler for my sci-fi book that I'll be reading next month. It should be fun. So thank you, Jordan, for inviting me on. It was a lot of fun, and I did enjoy talking with both of you. And, of course, those recommendations were really, really solid. So let's go ahead and move into some next week plans. Guys, got a couple of things on the docket here. We're going to be debuting the ℙ𝕦𝕤𝕤𝕤. Now, that's something that myself, Brian from BellTube, Dr. Philip Chase from The Best of Fantasy, and, of course, John over at Talking Story are going to be doing once a quarter. We're going to kind of be picking a book out of our comfort zone, reading it, and then getting together to talk about it. So it's kind of like our own little book club. It's a lot of fun, and I think that even I've had so many people ask me, "Are you guys still doing this, even though you DNF'd the Vanished Birds?" Yes, we're still going to be doing it. I think that is actually going to be a good part of the conversation. So again, I think we all have very varying opinions on this book. I'll kind of talk about why, but myself, who hasn't actually finished it, I'll get to find out what the ending was by talking with them. So that should be fun. It's always fun talking with those three gentlemen, and I can't wait to do it. And I think we're supposed to be announcing our next book pick, so we got to figure that out by Wednesday. Yes, that'll be Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Houston time. So check out timeanddate.com to find out what time that is where you are, because we will be live and we will be taking questions from the audience. So we're going to kind of rotate that. This first one's on my channel, and then I don't know who's next, but we're going to kind of rotate each one onto another one of our channels. So it should be a good time, and I hope you guys will join us. I'll be getting back into the multiverse, guys, because it is time to talk Dreamcatcher by Stephen King, a book I feel is very, very it's not very well liked, let's put it that way, but I also think that I don't really understand a lot of those criticisms, because I do feel like it gets a lot of flack that some books I think are a lot worse than that do not get. And we'll talk about that and talk about what I liked, what I did not like about the book, and that should be fun, because I always enjoy doing a good Into the Multiverse and talking about those connections that go all the way around his multiverse on all through the different paths of the beam. So good times ahead if you are a Stephen King fan, and I hope you have read Dreamcatcher, because it should be quite the mixed discussion. We will see. A couple of TV movie talk things before I go, guys. Not very much going on. Like I said, I was trying to get back in the swing of things and have a lot of free time. We did finish the last few episodes of Season 3 of Stranger Things. Now, this is a rewatch for my wife and I. We are doing that because my oldest son got really interested in checking the show out, and now he's just downright obsessed with it. I think that he has said, Season 1's still his favorite, but he's liked it all. That's how I felt at this point, too. I felt like I liked Season 1 the best. I still think Season 1's the best. I think Season 4 might be my second favorite. I don't know. We'll find out on this rewatch of it, because a lot of these things, the problems that I had with Season 2 and 3, I didn't have as much on a rewatch here. So I enjoyed the show all the way around. My oldest is enjoying the show and having a great time with it. And for me, it's just fun for him to ask the questions about, like, things are really like that in 1985, and say, oh yeah, actually they really, really were. There's a few things that are different, but it's pretty dang close. But it's cool to kind of share those things, where your kids are that age and they can see maybe the kind of stuff that you were getting. I mean, obviously not like fighting monsters and stuff, but just the pop culture of it all, seeing what that was like for you. It's kind of like when I was watching Back to the Future with my folks when I was a kid. I think that's kind of how he feels watching Stranger Things with us, knowing that we were that age at that time period. It's pretty cool, and I've enjoyed that rewatch immensely, starting Season 4 here very soon, and I hope it is as great as it was in my memory. House of the Dragon Season 2 debuts tonight. Cannot wait, guys. Look, I'm going to be honest. This is my most anticipated show of the year. I've been very, very excited for this. Thought Season 1 of House of the Dragon was better than Season 1 of Game of Thrones. And guys, if you know anything about Fire and Blood, you know anything about the Dance of Dragons, this has a chance to be the best Song of Ice and Fire adaptation out there, because the stuff that happens during the Dance of Dragons is probably the craziest moment in all of Westeros history. It's just incredible stuff. So I know HBO's sinking some money into this, so I hope people watch it, because you're just, instead of a couple of baby dragons, like we had in the early parts of Game of Thrones, you're going to have several full-grown dragons. They're all going to be fighting each other. It's going to be amazing, guys. And in the episode that's coming tonight, just say, guys, if you don't know, if you've not read Fire and Blood and you don't know what's coming, buckle up, baby, because what happens in this first episode of Season 2 is just going to melt some brains, and you're going to see lots of outcry. I cannot wait to see it. So hopefully they do it right. I pray they do it right. I hope they don't say, it's too dark, we can't really do that. I'm hoping they go all for it. I remember thinking that about the Red Wedding, thinking I hope they go for it. I hope they don't, kind of ease off the gas with that. And they actually found a way to make the Red Wedding even worse. See what I mean about the VR? My kid was just screaming right by my door. Anyhow, so House of Dragon tonight, guys. It's going to be amazing. I cannot wait to see it. And I'm fully expecting them to go all in and go for it. Ryan Condal loves the source material, so I do trust him pretty much with anything A Song of Ice and Fire related. But guys, that's all I have for this week. Hopefully this coming week things will be a little busier on the channel with fresh new content, and I'm excited to do it and excited to talk to you guys about it. So what are you guys up to? What are you watching? What are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you playing? I want you to drop in the comments, guys, and let me know. I would love to hear it. So hit me in the comments, guys, and I will talk to you there.